It's on Lab PC 16, Student Share, 3D Animation 1, 2014, Module 3, Software. It's all there. There's Fume Effects. If you don't like Fume, there's Phoenix Fire. It does the same thing. There's also V-Ray, an alternative renderer. There's a GWIV. It's just an IV script that if you want to grow IV along stuff, you can. And there's a multi-scatter which can scatter objects all over your scene. And there's Marmoset Toolbag for the gamers. It's a real-time renderer that will help you set up your character. Now we're going to start off with Fume. Fume is a proper 3D voxel based fluid simulation system. That means it's not 2D based, but it's a 3D pixel. To create it, you go to your Create tab, Geometry, drop down and go to Fume, and you can see there's a little Fume effect. Just drag it in your viewport. I like to create it in my top view. And then I'll just literally center it. This is a container. Anything that you create will fall inside this container, so your particles will be inside of it. The reason why it's a container is you want to contain the simulation time so it doesn't take 3 weeks versus 3 hours. So you tell it where you want to simulate within. On your tab, you've got controls. I won't worry too much about that because it's also on the other GUI. I'm just going to set the size to 50, 50, and 100. 50, 50, and 100. Okay. Now you can see the little 3D voxel right in the corner. That's the detail of your simulation. And as you can tell, if you're going to leave this as it is, those pixels are going to be relatively big in that space. Okay. And the best way to do it is go straight to the bottom of this tab where it says Voxel Grid, put it onto Auto, and that's how big your pixels are. If you were doing this as a Photoshop file, you can already see the pixels at this distance. This is not going to work. But let's get started. We're going to call it Fume Effects. Let's call it Fire Container. Save. Important. Especially today with this machine. Fire _0. And now we're going to create an emitter, because right now if we simulate that, there's nothing inside of it creating fire, smoke, none of that. So you go back to your Create tab, you go to your helpers, you drop down and you look for Fume again. There is a simple source is what we're going to use. You can emit off a sphere or a box or a cylinder. That's why it's a simple source. It doesn't do anything complicated. Then you've got your object emitter. So if you wanted to emit off your character running through the scene on fire, it'll give you a choice. What object you want it to emit off, and you pick your character and it'll emit off it. Then there is your particles. That means combining max particles and Fume to get a final result. And then you got your gravity, which is your gravity. You generally will only use a gravity if you want to more make the things defy gravity versus actual, because there's already built-in gravity. Then there's the Fume effect source. If you want to use Fume and particles together, but the particle source will use the particles and use Fume to render it. Fume will use the particles to render, so it's back and forward depending which way you want to work with it. A void source literally creates a void, so if your particles go near it, it won't simulate and it will not exist. An effector will be winds, vortexes. You put it into the scene, you select your effectors and you put it in. All we're going to do now is put our little, if I leave this outside of here, nothing will happen. It has to be within the container, so just zero it out, make sure it sits inside the container. I'm going to scale it down a little bit so we can actually get more flame coming out of it, and then just bring it closer to the bottom of the container again. With particles and anything to do with smoke, we need to create a light. So go and create a light. I'm just going to create a standard target spot, nothing special. I'm not going to use Mental Ray for this one, because I render my particles generally straightforward out of scanlines, a lot quicker. And before your particles will receive or cast any shadows, you have to go to your Modify tab, turn on Shadows. You can have shadow maps. I prefer to render it quicker, so I go Ray Traced. And in order for it to affect, because it's a true particle, a true 3D volumetric particle, go to Shadow Parameters and turn on Atmosphere Shadows. It's the same way you'd get volume rays, guard rays, whatever you want to call them. And now I'm just going to place my camera. Let's go somewhere there. Control C. Make it HD. For your final product, if you want to render HD and you have the time and you can, render it 1920 by 1080. If you can't, minimum is 1280 by 720, which is half HD. Right click on your camera, show save frame. I've seen a lot of you go to your utilities to check out your poly count. The easiest way to do it is go under realistic, go configure, go under your statistics and switch from poly count to triangle, turn off vertex count, put onto selection, apply, and then press 7 on your keyboard. and all your polys and tries will pop up while you're working. You don't have to keep calculating it on that stupid old school method. It'll just pop up on your viewport. Okay. Pleasure. Because I saw people doing it, I'm going, wow, I haven't seen that in years. So pop it up. Now we're going to you got your preview window, which we haven't previewed anything at all. So there's nothing to, it says frame missing because we haven't previewed anything. Then you got your GUI interface, and that's what we're going to start with. Let's start off by adding object and light. Go to your object source right at the end. There's a little fingers, looks like it's picking something. Pick it and go grab your object source. It'll tell you picked FFX simple source 001. That's correct. Then you're going to select your light. So you go Illum, pick your light. And for now, that's all you really need to worry about. Your light and your stuff is done. Now you can do a quick sim if you really want to see what it looks like. Open your preview window. It says open preview window. Press the play button. And the pause button pauses and continues. So just press play. Let it simulate. Very simple flame. Very ugly probably if you render it. And then just play it through and see if all you do is just you're testing speed. It's too fast. The smoke's traveling too high up. Yeah. So now we're going to go to our general tab and run through. Quality is your spacing. The lower this number goes to 0, the higher the quality. But chances are it's going to take days to simulate, so just keep an eye on that. It does give you a little bit of a threshold. It says it's 22 by 22 by 44. That means it's 22 pixels, or in this case voxels, 22 by 22 by 44. And it says it's going to sum up to 1 meg per frame of memory, and it's going to take up to 1 meg to render. We're going to bring this down to about 1. And that says it's going to take up to 11 megs of memory per frame and 6 megs to render. Just keep an eye on that. It's very important. And by default, it will calculate the fume pass to your C drive. In this case, the C drive is 8 gigs. It's not going to work. So I'm going to take it out of there and put it straight to an allocated folder that I want. There we go. And I'm going to call it fire. Save it. Wavelet turbulence means you take your existing simulation, just add more detail to it. So once again, just go and rename it, put it into the same folder, because they will all be named differently, so don't really worry. It's not like you won't know, because one of them says WT at the end, so leave that. That means it's a wavelet turbulence. Just call it fire, so you know what it's for. And then the retimer is just to retime it afterwards. Literally to retime if it's too fast, too slow. At least you got the simulation done. You can bring it into a new fume pass and it's done. That one is called PP. Okay. Post process. Save it. And as you can tell, there's a start and end to every particle. We want to switch it to wavelet at the end. So go to your sim panel and make sure everything says wavelet instead of none. The next tab is the sim panel. The number on the top, the quality. That will determine how detailed your sim will be. In this case, it's not going closer to 0. The higher the number, the better the quality. I'm going to leave it at 5 for now. Maximum iterations is if you've got something flying through space very quickly, you will lose flame and particle integrity. So the key is to up that number from 200 to 500, depending what you need it to be for it to maintain the shape and the consistency of the smoke. I'm going to leave it on 200. Once again, self condition. The higher that number goes, the better the condition. The better quality. We're going to leave it at 5 because this machine's struggling today. Now, maximum steps. It's the same as doing the clock. If it fails at step doing it once, it won't do it again. So if you want your quality to be better, just set it to steps 2. So it'll try to solve the problem twice and then move on. We're going to leave it on 1. Variable density solver. What that means is that it will try to calculate it a lot smoother for fast moving objects. Ours is just fire, it's not really moving, I'm going to leave it off. Advection stride is speed. If it's traveling, do you want it to travel with advanced fields and velocity? You will do that if you're going to comp it afterwards and not render it straight out of max. Because we're rendering it out of max, I'm going to leave it as default. I'm going to slow down the particles because as you can tell, the fire's burning too quickly, everything's burning too quickly. So advection stride is your speed. So I'm going to set that about 0.3 for now. Cubic interpolation means that it will calculate it and solve it and make it look better. I'm not going to turn that on for now. Time scale. If you want to do the matrix, 1 means it's running at full speed. 0 means it's literally frozen in time. So you'd animate it from 1 to 0 over time. and it will hold the explosion, and then you can continue the animation back up to 1. Okay. If you want it to go look like it's going fast forward, you up the number from 1 to 2 or whatever it might be. I'm going to set this to about 0.8 just to slow it down a little bit. Now there's gravity. Please don't fiddle with your gravity. Okay. And now your vorticity. 0 is bad quality, 1 is good quality. At the moment it's set to 50%. We're going to set it to 0.6%. So in the 60%, so it's 0.6. Velocity dampening is how much the air around it will slow down the flames and the smoke. I'm going to put it to about 0.1. Turbulence is, let's just do a quick sim so you can see what it actually does. Turbulence will make your particles and flames go crazy, like somebody's just possessed them and they're going all over the place. Because right now it's quite nice. It's burning and it's doing its nice, very maintained flame. The moment we add turbulence, so let's set the turbulence to the max of 100% and redo it, and you'll see the big difference. Everything is a little bit more crazy. It's probably be good for more magical effects versus realistic particles. And you can see it's a lot crazier. The movement's insane. And you can also allocate it to be turbulent in the X, Y, or Z independently. I'm going to make it 0.1 for turbulence. I don't need it to go that crazy. Now this little pretty noise map. If you see any of this in any 3D package, it generally controls the way the particles look and move. Because it's so big, the smoke and the flames will be nice and big and thick, like a candle, versus small and tendril like forest fires, whatever you want to call it. It's up to you. I'm going to lower it, so instead of the scale being 20, I'm going to make it 10. And you can see the images becoming smaller. Add more frames. What that means is it will animate over 10 frames and then try to loop. I'm going to give it more frames to work with, so I'm going to go 20. And detail is exactly what it does. The higher the number, the more detail you're going to have. And you can see the map's already got detail in it. And you can see the map is animating. Means that that's how it's going to actually influence the movement of the particle. Okay. And now you got fuel. Buoyancy controls. If you go in the negative on buoyancy, it means it will hold, the flame won't travel as high. So we're going to set it to about negative 0.3. And now ignition temperature. If you set that to 0, the moment that fuel hits the air, it will ignite. It works like in real life. If you wanted to fill the room and then ignite, you will pump that number to 300. So you'll notice if we sim it now, the fire won't ignite straight away. It'll just fill it up and then ignite. I'm going to leave it on standard 100. Burn rate controls distance of flames. So if you think your flame's traveling too high and too fast, you bring it from 30, let's say in this case, let's bring it down to 10. And now burn rate variation works from 0 to 1. 1 is 100%, 0 is nothing. At the moment it's set to 10% variation. We'll leave it at 10%. And I want it to produce quite a lot of smoke, so that's heat production. So at the moment it's set to 10. I'm going to go to 15 so it can produce more smoke. By default, smoke will be turned off. Just turn it back on. And I'm going to up the smoke density to 0.2. And this fume effects at least is nice. It's got controls separate for everything, from your fuel to your fire to your smoke. And now you'll notice you can go and now worry about your smoke. Once again, my smoke might be traveling too high and too quickly, so the buoyancy has to go negative. Instead of negative 1, negative 1.1. And then you'll play with your dissipation minimum strength. What that means is the moment the smoke is built up in the air, how long before it dissipates and vanishes? Do you want it to just linger for a while? Then you just up that number if you want it to start dissipating sooner. I'll leave it as it is. And diffusion means how long before it starts breaking up and looks almost like dust particles and just vanishes. And then you've got your temperature. Please don't fiddle with your temperature unless you really need to. And now let's go do another test. It's already moving a little bit better. But just play it through, see what it looks like. All this pass does is it helps the particle move a little bit more realistically. It's not about making it look good. That's under your render tab. I think the flames travel too high still. The smoke's actually nice, but the flames travel way too high. So once we go to our sim tab, we go to our fuel and set it to negative 0.6 instead of negative 0.3 and do another pass. But before we do that, let's run through the rest of the tabs. WTP is your wavelet turbulence controller. Grid detail, the closer it goes to 0, the more detail, the higher that goes, the less detail. Leave it on 2, it's actually a pretty decent solution. we're not going to render the fuel, which is, if you light your, let's say your lighter, it's the blue. We don't need that, so we're going to just turn that off so we don't actually waste time simulating it. Then you go under your render node. I'm only going to touch on this now. Let's just try to get our sim out. So I'm going to do a quick sim, see what the flames are doing now. I'm just going to let the fire burn. I'm not going to be too concerned about anything else. Okay, at least it's burning less. I think the buoyancy needs to be fiddled with more instead of only the speed. So we're going to go back to our fuel and say -1. The burn rate is still too high, so I'm going to put it to 3. Sometimes the best way to know what each setting does is to just play with 1, do a simulation, 2, do another simulation, and because the scene looks pretty small, that number might have to go into the burn rate can't be 3, it has to be probably be 0.5. I'm going to go to 1, and I'm going to leave it as it is. For now, I'm going to say, okay, I'm happy with this, this is beautiful. All I'm going to change in my emitter is how much smoke comes out of it. At the moment it's set to 2, I'm going to put it up to 12, and then we can simulate it. Go back to your general tab, and now we're going to up the quality of it. Because we set to 1, I'm going to go 0.7, 0.6, and then we're going to leave it there. I'm not going to try do too much of a fine-tuned, because I'm too afraid this machine will die. So let's just quickly simulate it. And then we're going to do a wavelet pass. What that does is it takes your current simulation and just refines it and gives it more detail. At the moment, your smoke will render like it's self-illuminated because they decided that white is the perfect color for smoke, which generally is not, but it's okay. And you can tell it's already taking a little bit longer. The last class's sim took 15 minutes, so I cannot wait that long. I'm just gonna let it go and be happy with it. And please don't take this estimated time as definite, because the chances are it will start off with no fire and says, oh, it'll take 5 minutes. The moment all the smoke hits on screen, it's going to take longer. So just play it through and see what it looks like. Let's see what it looks like. So let's go to about frame 80. I'm sure it'll look pretty crap, so let's try it. There we go. And now we've noticed the blue is where the flame ends. So we don't actually need the container to be that big. It's actually a waste of time. What I'm going to do is create a little box so I know where the container ends, just on the top. And then we can bring down the container and re-simulate it. It will be just a lot easier. And plus, then we can get better quality out of it if we just re-sim it. Once again, I'm just going to quickly re-sim it. Now that we've made the container smaller, we can actually get better quality. So we're going to go 0.38. And now I'm going to do this one. Just pop up your preview window. Remember, the more contained your container, literally the tighter it is around your action, the more detail you're going to get out of it. So do a preview, see where it falls, and then create little boundaries, and then just shrink it back in. Just remember, if the smoke does hit the container, it will hit it as if it's a solid object, so it'll build up against the roof, or the wall, or the floor, whatever it might be. I think the buoyancy on the smoke's too low, but it's okay. We'll just leave it be. It's fine for now. It can take you many hours to tweak this and make it look decent. Just the movement, not the look. The look is actually relatively simple, because Fume will make it look pretty decent off the bat. Okay, I've upped the quality quite a bit, that's why it's taking a little bit longer. If you wanted the guy's head on fire, please detach that mesh, link it to the original character, and then use that mesh as the emitter, and then his head will be on fire. Just be funny to watch. Hey, Dizio. Until it burns you. Okay, and that's us, and that's done. Let's just do a quick test and see what it looks like. I'm gonna go about there. As you can see, everything looks a little bit too blown out, so we're gonna start fiddling with the smoke color. So now we're gonna go to our render tab. Click on your render tab. the step size. The more that goes to 100%, the lower the quality. The closer that comes to 0%, the better the quality. I know it works weird. Just remember, some of these numbers work in opposite directions. So if you want good quality, you'll bring this closer to 0. I'm going to leave it on 50. One thing you want to do with any particle is soften edges near objects. You'll just soften it out so it won't make it as prominent. If you need your flame to fall off in a specific shape, whether it's a sphere or a box, you can switch it up. And then you've got your super sampling. That's exactly the same as Mental Ray's anti-aliasing. If your edges are too pixelated, just up this number. Just remember, if you go from 32 to, let's say, 64, just make sure you bring 16 to 32. It's half. Okay. Viewport degrade, that means is how many particles are in your viewport. And you can turn them on. I'm going to try now and see. You can turn them on. In this case, let's just turn on fire. You can see that there they are. And you can also turn on smoke, but I'm not going to turn on, and this machine can actually handle it pretty well. I don't even care about putting any of that in the viewports. I can see it in the window. And then you've got your standard shader. Do you want channel data? What that means is if you want to render it to Comp in After Effects, Digital Fusion, Nuke, whatever you use, you can put it onto channel data. It'll render every single channel separate. Okay, now you've got your flame. Please don't leave it on straightforward orange because no fire is just straight orange. Bring up your preview window. In this case, switch up the quality from 3 to 5 so you can see what it's looking like, and then start playing around with it. Right click and say key mode. What that means is the gradient. Okay. This is the inside of the flame. This is the outside on the left. Don't worry, confused the shit out of me when I first started learning it, because when you start getting self-taught, you just fiddle through every single slide until something happens. So I like to make it darker in the middle, especially near the object. Then I'll make it black. You can see it's already starting to make it the inside of the flame darker. You can make it any color you want. I like to make it dark all the way through. And then just control it. I would like it to be a bright orange over here, so I'll just bring the orange up a little bit. And then more yellow on the end. Just fiddle with it until you get a decent looking flame. Maybe what I like to do also is move it and just make it go back to black on the outside, so it gets a decent feather. And now we need to adjust the smoke color because this is just pretty ugly. Now the color, if I set that number next to the color to 0, you won't see the smoke at all. 1 will make it brighter, 2 will really blow the hell out of it. Just find a happy medium where you're happy with it. Opacity is the same thing. Is it there? Is it not? Okay. Now these map sources, if you wanted to emit off the surface but you don't want it to emit perfectly, you put a smoke map or a noise map, and wherever it's white will have fire, wherever it's black won't have fire. The easiest way to test it is just put a checker map on your surface and see. It'll emit off the white checkers and not the black ones. Okay, and then you set to world object coordinates, and then it'll take from your object. Okay, and then you can also influence how much it's influenced by the map. Okay, now you go to smoke. By default, please, I don't use a gradient for my smoke. I just right mode and say key this mode off and switch it to a nice dark color. You can see it's already updating the dark color in the view in the window. I want it to cast and receive shadows, and I'm going to leave the fuel off because I don't need it to have the fuel on. Okay, because that I'm not doing a, let's say, a candle or a lighter where you need to see the blue on it. Now we're going to do a quick, simple test render, see what it looks like, see if the smoke's too dark. Looks like the smoke's a little bit too dark, it's falling away. So now we're going to go back and just adjust the smoke color. Make it lighter. Just render it again. There we go. At least now the smoke is picking up. If you think the smoke is too flimsy, please don't resim it. Just go to your opacity and say 100 instead of 1. And then just do a quick render. It'll just really build up the smoke, as you can see. And as you can see, it's hit the ceiling, so all the smoke is stopped there. Okay, now as you can tell, it's the light that we're using is too light. So just go to your light and up the multiplier. So instead of 1, make it 1.5, because that smoke is really falling away. Do another quick render, and you can see it's lighting it up nicely now. And now I'm going to lower the. This is a bit too dark as well. Just go until you're happy with the smoke color, and then I'm going to lower the intensity again. I don't need it to be 100. That's a little bit too thick still. Just keep going until you find a happy medium. So let's say 20 is too high. Let's try 5. Okay, cool. So you see some of the smoke, you see some of the fire. Okay. Now the cool thing is I'm going to try to do it in this lesson like I did last one. I want this fire to impact the look of the smoke. So I'm going to turn in multi-scattering. It's the FumeFX version of GI. And all you want is the fire to affect the smoke. And you don't want the smoke to affect the smoke. So I'm just going to kill that off for now and leave it at the strength of 1, see what that does. And you'll notice it does affect the coloring of the smoke now. The fire is actually illuminating the smoke. I think it's a little bit too potent, so I'm going to tweak it down and set, instead of fire strength 1, put it to 0.2, see what it does. It should be a lot lighter, and it is. Maybe it's a little bit too light now, because it is illuminating, but not enough. So now we know where to gauge. 1 was too much, so let's go halfway, 0.5. Every scene will be different. And now we're going to add more detail to this. So I'm going to remember that I did it at frame. Let's go do it straight at frame 100. Let's duplicate this frame so we can actually see the quality difference. Go back, and now we're going to do a wavelet pass. The normal one is a green button. The wavelet, go under sim mode, switch to wavelet, is orange now. All you have to do is click play again. It'll take the existing simulation you've got and just go in and tweak it. Give it more detail, fine tune it a little bit. It will take a little bit longer to render and simulate, but it is definitely worth it. Otherwise, if you have 3 days to simulate it, then just simulate it and let it carry over 3 days. I'll show you a little thing I'm doing for the Nando's job. The key was to make sure that it simmed in an hour and rendered in 20 minutes, because they're going to have about 20 different sayings or whatever they do, Nando's, whatever they call it. Where is it? So it's simple. I don't know what their font is because it's a in-house font, so they'll give me the font when they do get it. It's just very simple. Flames, burn out, turn off, and then whatever the text might be underneath. Mine's called test for lack of, because they don't. When you start dealing with ad agencies, they're the worst people to work with because they're the most clueless. That's what the character looks like, the little Dre character, final. That's the high poly projected onto the low poly. So the low poly is the one you saw in the max, that's the high poly. Okay. It was fun to make. It's more fun when you do it for yourself. And now you just let the sim carry on. My best advice is you obviously have to make money in the real world. Just make sure you don't ever lose the love. Just keep doing your little sideline projects to keep yourself entertained and hone your skills. Please don't do what a lot of people nowadays is. The worst thing you can do is specializing, especially if you're going to outside of America, because most of the time everywhere else in the world they want generalists, not specialists. Yes, if you want to be the best character modder, fine, do that on your own time, but still know your packages, no matter which one you do. If somebody gives you something to start it, you must be able to start and finish it all on your own. Okay. And that's one way to guarantee a job. If you want to go into America and they love your models, then fine, specialize. But please don't, put yourself in a little bubble saying I'm just a ZBrush artist or just a Mudbox artist or just a Photoshop user. Learn as many programs as you can. It can only benefit you. Be a jack of all trades. You don't have to be 100% perfect at everything. Just try to be good at all of it decently. And then if you're really good at modeling, like I really like modeling and texturing, and funny enough, no, actually, wait. I really like modeling. I hate texturing, but I'm really good at texturing. You end up realizing the things you hate are the things you're good at. Okay. And I love doing particles, but I rarely get to play with them. It's so much fun. It's almost done. Yay! And you can tell it gives you settings. It's telling you it's using half a gig of memory per frame. This will be a very pathetic excuse for a sim. You should be looking at I'll give you an example. How V-Ray works is you need to at least be using 2 gigs per frame of RAM. It will probably come up to be 150 gig hard drive space. Please have a lot of hard drive space. It's going to be important. Now, if you need to render it, right now if I render it, it will still look ugly like it does. Well, I suppose it's not ugly now. It's just not that pretty. But if you want to switch to the wavelet, please remember everything in Max or actually in programming, you have to go to cache and switch it out to wavelet. Now you can render the new prettiness. And it will be sometimes it's a subtle difference, a lot of the times it's a dramatic difference. Let's just hope in this case it's a dramatic difference. It should be. And now I'm going to go in 200% into roughly the same area. You can see the smoke has a lot more detail than this one. This one looks more puffy. For clouds, I'd probably leave it at this pass. But for fire, you can even see the fire itself has more detail. All the way through. And then you do a test render. With fire, please don't just render the entire thing. Go maybe every 10 frames and say, okay, what does it look like at the beginning? Do a quick test render, see if it looks okay. What does it look like at 50? Do another render. Just to see if it's looking okay. And then once again, if you're not happy with the intensity of the smoke, you can go and alter it anytime you want in the render tab and say, okay, I want to go back to 50 quantity of smoke and just render it again. Okay, so now it's more explosive. And if you really think it's not enough, then go up it again. Instead of 50, go ridiculous. Go 500. See what happens. No, it'll just be a lot thicker. And then render it along and see what it does. Okay, you can see now it's really crazy, and you can play around with it. Just have fun with it. Fume is about having fun. But I'm going to switch it back to the 5 that it was, and you can render it. Now we're going to combine particles and fume. We're going to start with a normal simple super sprayer like we did last week. Go to your standard particles, perimeter particle systems, and I'm going to create a super sprayer right in the middle. It's fine. Center it just to make sure it is. Call it super emitter. And now we're going to add some gravity to it. So go back to your helpers, in this case space warps, and I'm going to put in a vortex, and I'm going to put in a gravity. First, let's just do the actually let's do both while we're here. And I'm going to grab my particle and link them both. So bind to space warp, start with one, then the next one. And how the vortex works is it actually works on placement. You'll notice the particles will try to follow weird. It's trying to go to the vortex. First of all, our gravity is way too intense, so I'm going to set it to about 0.3. And then you can see it's trying to go to the vortex. Let's go and give our particles a little bit more character. So go to your sprayer, spread it apart a little bit. Go to your particle generation, and instead of having spawning 10 particles every single time, I'm going to give it a quantity of 20. Because this is going to be for fume. Maybe, and then set your viewport count to 100% because it's only 20 particles. It's not really going to kill it. There we go. And I want them to live a little bit longer, so I'm going to set the life to about 50, variation of 25%, and then just play around with it and see what it looks like. And now I'm going to bring in my little vortex and decide where I want to place it. Because as you can see, the particles are moving with it. Let's see what it does. I'm going to flip it upside down. Just play around and see what it actually does. See, oh, okay, it does that. Cool. And then shift it up. Play around, see what it really does. You can actually see what it's doing. Move it closer. Just see what it does. It's not too bad. It's creating some weird, interesting results. Let's play. I don't want it to go too wide because, and you can tell if depending where you point it, it'll follow it. So just make sure you point it in whatever direction you really want it to be. Yeah, they're living way too long. And then I'm going to just play around until I'm happy with this, whatever this thing is supposed to be doing. Have fun with it. Particles is about, it's also very much so an art. It's actually pretty nice. I want it to die sooner now that I don't want it to go through the floor too much, so I'm going to switch the life back to probably 30, 25, and see what it does. Okay, cool. So it goes to the point and then dissipates downwards. If you want, you can animate your vortex on. So let's grab your vortex, for example, and say at about 80 I want it to die off. You just have to turn time off at 80. Come on, computer, catch up. 80 and it'll stop working. So the particles might just follow and then disperse straight away. You can tell. Let's set it to about 30 so it really makes it obvious. Now at 30 and then it disperses. Whee! We're not going to do that. We're going to keep it following all the way up to 100. I'm going to set my time frame to a little bit less because I don't want to sit here simulating forever. So I'm going to go 75. And now we have to create our little container. Because we're going to use fume to actually render it with. Just go back to your... I'm going to call it particle fume. What a lot of people also do is they combine real flow with fume, and you can get some interesting results. Let's go and create our container. First of all, let's go to the extreme of the particles. Wherever the widest they are, it looks like that's the widest they're going to be, and create your little container. Go to your first tab, fume effects, just draw around it. Go to your front viewport to make sure you're actually containing it. I'm going to give it a limit at the bottom. So I'm going to stop it over there and just increase the height. See where it actually goes the highest. Bring it a little bit lower. And now we're going to assign everything into it. So grab your container. First, before we do anything else, you need to go to your helpers. Once again, fume effects. And now this is a particle source. That means it wants to pick up a particle. So you're going to go, okay, particle source, create one. Go to your create tab. Pick your particle system, which will be your super spray. It says a super emitter. And now we're going to assign everything. First, let's once again light, because we're going to have smoke. Go create your light, standard particles, target spot. Just make sure it encompasses the entire fume. Don't forget to turn on shadows. By default, it will be off. Ray traced, whatever you want. Please don't forget under shadow parameters to turn on advanced atmosphere shadows advanced. Okay, now let's go assign everything. We'll start off with object. So go and assign your little object source. In this case, it's your particle emitter. Go to your light, pick your light, switch back to default sim mode, and let's go and allocate where it needs to sim to. So we're going to go back to our little folder, lesson 4. This time we're going to call it particle fume, and then just save it, and then do the same for the next one. Just leave WT at the end. Save. Go to your retimer and save. And now let's just do a quick test and place our camera in. That's over there. Please don't forget. If you want, what I normally do is set up my frame at work, to, my framing and everything to be straight HD, so there's no confusion. Okay, so let's simulate that as a quick little test. It's probably going to be very bad, but let's let it go. Very low res sim, but it's gets the movement across, and that's all you're really trying to do. This is the same as animating. Please don't go into fine details off the bat. The key is to see if the movement looks fine. Cool. It's not too bad. Now we're going to tweak a few settings. Go to your sim tab, and once again I'm going to slow it down 0.3, because the particles now are getting the movement from the particle system and adding movement to itself. So I'm going to set the timer to 0.7 timescale, and now I'm going to up the quality 0.7, and because this is moving so fast, please don't forget maximum iterations need to go higher. So I'm going to go up to 500. I'm going to add finer details to this. So I'm going to say 5 for the scale. I want it over 30 frames, and I want the detail to be 5. So you add more detail into it. I want it to the air to slow down quite a bit, so I'm going to set it to 0.3, and I want it to be quite turbulent, so I'm going to set it to about 0.2. Then you go under your buoyancy. You don't, I suppose it can float off, but I'm going to go negative 0.2, negative 0.2, and then slow it down. So I'm going to slow it down to about 3, the flames, so the flames don't last forever. Create smoke, and now you're going to do the same settings. Smoke buoyancy is it's going to just float away, so 1.2, negative, and I don't want it to dissipate, so let's just leave that as it is and do a test. Now the fire should die off pretty quickly, and it is. That's nice. And then do a test. This one is, as you can tell, it's already going to take a while to simulate. Okay, now let's try to add some quality to it. So you go to your general tab. At the moment it's using 7 megs. I'm going to go down to 1. Let's try 0.9, 0.8. Let's hope 0.7. I think I'm going to stop there just for out of safety reasons, so we don't switch forever. And press play to sim it. Please make sure that everything is set to wavelet before you do that. Otherwise, you're going to have to resim it again just to try get a reasonable effect. Ooh, my magical effect. Well, it's shooting rockets from a point. I don't know what it's doing. Like, particles are in a way a lot like animation. Please just start off with a very basic idea of what you want it to do, and then go worry about making it complicated. Don't complicate things too early. I want to add more smoke to this, so let's just quickly kill it off. I'm going to go to my object tab, grab your particle source, and you can go and see it says smoke amount. I'm going to set the smoke amount to 20. And then I'm going to play around with my render settings now while I'm at it. Instead of having the gradient of just orange, I'm going to go key mode. Same as before. You can make it any color. Let's actually make these flames blue. So I'm going to go to the end, set it to blue. Nice, pretty. Oh, that's hideous blue. That's a terrible blue, terrible blue. Okay, and then I'm going to switch it to black on the left so it can fade off. Play around with the gradients. They're a lot of fun, because you can get some interesting results. And I want it to go even brighter, so I'm just going to maybe just pump up the color a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to leave that gradient as it is. I'm going to change the color of the smoke to black, or a closer family of black, whichever works. There we go, that's a decent color. Cast shadows, receive shadows, the works. I want it to be a little bit smokier than before. And then just do another test. Lay it through. And some. Now we've got blue flames. Awesome. You can use fume effects for something as simple as making clouds, to making mist, to making fire, to making an ink blotch, hitting the water. You can use it for almost anything. Okay, I think I might have added too much smoke, but we'll let it go. Once again, if you think you added too much smoke, it's fine. Just reduce the intensity of the smoke in the render tab. Sim it once only. If you're going to do a very complex scene, let's say the rocket flies and hits the floor, explodes, then pieces fly off it. The rocket will be one pass, the explosion will be another pass, the pieces flying off it will be a separate pass. If you want them to hit the floor, that will be another pass. Don't keep it in one file, because you will hate yourself in the long run. Try to save yourself some headaches and just separate it as much. Now we're going to do the wavelet pass while we're here. Might as well just click it and let it do the secondary pass. Fume is very cool because it only have one employer that does not like Fume, because he can't make the particles perform the way he wants them to. Fume does natural particles. If you want to make it perform, you have to use particles in max and use Fume as in, like we're doing now. You want it to be more design, you have to spend the time making it, or you have to actually animate objects and then use the objects to emit from. Fume does natural movement. That's why it was created. Well, like I said, if you don't like Fume, Phoenix Fire is in there. And if you're a V-Ray lover, just go with Phoenix Fire. It renders nicely with V-Ray. Now, if you're going to do a final sim for, let's say, a project, it can take anywhere up to 3 days to make a decent sim. And like I said, it can also take up a couple of terabytes of hard drive space. So just be very careful how you do it. Yes, terabytes. So let's say you're going to do a 30-second sim of fire, for example. A 30-second fire sim can take up to 2 gigs of memory per frame and will take about 150 gigs of hard drive space. Generally, you will click net. There's a little network option, so you can do this over the network. It's a lot quicker, because it'll use all the machines in your network to help simulate, do the Fume part of the simulation. But please make sure you got a decent server to run it through, because it's going to bounce back information. It's never that easy just to get it done. And come on, finish. And then we're going to illuminate particles again like we did before. Turn on multi-scatter. I'm going to turn off the smoke strength, set it down to about 0.5. Do a quick test render now to see what it looks like. Whoa, too much smoke. Okay, and now we're going to reduce the amount of smoke. So go under your render tab and just go to your smoke and set it down to about 0.5. See what it looks like. Okay, that's a little bit better. It's still a little bit intense, but it's okay. It's a little better. Let's just reduce it a little bit more, and then I think I'm just going to leave it at about 0.25. I'm going to up the illumination to about 1 and see what that does. Okay, good. That's a little bit better. And now we're going to do our, that will be our, let's, for example, that is our default pass. As you can tell, it's very soft, very grainy. Now we're going to render our wavelet pass. Just let it render it. And now you can tell, if we zoom in just on the top tip at 200%, or in this case 1:1, you can see the quality difference from the default to, if you just scroll through it, how much more detail there is in everything. And that's just by simply doing a wavelet pass. And then you can once again go through any part of it and go, okay, what does it look like there? No, I think the fire is a little bit too strong. It's glowing too much. Because the moment you're going to post, you're going to add a bit of a glow to it, and it's going to go, oh. It's going to be like, why the fuck is it glowing? Okay, so we're going to set it to about 0.3. We don't need it to glow that much. I mean, because you must always take into consideration you're going to be putting this into post and going, oh, okay. We need to fix this a little bit. Okay. I'm going to let this do a decent sim in the background while you guys carry on working. And then maybe